the female reproductive system and its physiology before pregnancy. And in this session, we will be discussing these miscellaneous topics as in front of you, starting from the germ cell development. Basically, the ovum development that begins in the fetal life. The germ cells in female reproductive system are the oovocytes. The primary oovocyte, which has to undergo meiosis later on, and at birth there are 1 to 2 million oovocytes in average female ovary, which are arrested in their prophase 1. That is, it had started its meiosis 1 but was arrested in its prophase 1. So this is the state at the time of birth, and each primary oovocyte is surrounded by multiple follicular cells of the ovary, as you can see over here, and we call it a primary follicle. If you recall from your knowledge of embryology, it begins from a primordial follicle, which was a single layer of cells around the oovocyte, and now there are multiple layers, and we call it the primary follicle, enclosing the primary oovocyte, which is arrested in the prophase 1. At birth till puberty, this will stay in this state. The primary oovocytes arrested in prophase 1 inside the primary follicle. At the time of puberty, the next step of oovocyte development will occur each month from puberty till the menopause. Few primary oovocytes will complete their prophase 1 and enter into these two cell state. The one primary oovocyte dividing into two, forming one secondary oovocyte, and the other one first polar body, which will then degenerate. Both two cells will not be functional as secondary oovocyte, rather one will persist as secondary oovocyte, whereas the other one will be the polar body that will be degenerated. And this is different from the male reproductive physiology, where primary spermatocytes produce two secondary spermatocytes and then four spermatids are produced, whereas in the females, polar bodies are produced, and from primary oovocyte, one mature ovum will be formed ultimately. So every month, few 5 to 10 primary oovocytes will complete their meiosis 1 and convert into secondary oovocyte. And this secondary oovocyte will then continue with its meiosis 2. Again, this meiosis 2 will not be completed, rather arrested at the level of metaphase 2. So with those 5 to 10 primary oovocytes that became secondary oovocyte in 1 month menstrual cycle, only one will persist, while others, they will be degenerated. The one, the largest and having the better receptors for the hormones, I will be discussing in the menstrual cycle session, will persist. So talking about this secondary oovocyte, this is now arrested in the metaphase 2. Another change you can appreciate over here, the follicle has been changed to the pre-ovulatory mature follicle. As you can see, the cavity inside and the increased number of cells surrounding this mature follicle now. One other thing you can appreciate over here, that at birth there were 1 to 2 million oovocytes present in the female ovary, whereas at puberty only, you can see 3 lakh oovocytes remain, while rest have already degenerated. And from these 3 lakh, only about 400 to 500 follicles are going to develop and release the ovum ultimately by the time of the menopause, and rest are going to regress again. The oovocyte that had converted into secondary oovocyte and arrested in the metaphase 2 is present in the pre-ovulatory follicle, which will then become the mature follicle that will ultimately ovulate. So the ovulated egg that we see is actually the secondary oovocyte, which is still arrested in the metaphase 2. One other thing you can appreciate in this follicle, from primary follicle to pre-ovulatory follicle, you can appreciate multiple granulosa cells over here, and the ovum is now attached by granulosa cells stalk of this follicle, and outside there is layer of granulosa cells as well as theca cells have started developing. Now, what will happen to this ovulated secondary oocyte? This can only complete its meiosis II if it is fertilized by the sperm. Otherwise, if not, this will stay arrested in its metaphase 2. And if fertilized by the sperm, meiosis 2 will be completed. Another polar body will be created along with the mature ovum, which will combine with the sperm to form the zygote. Whereas the ovarian follicle, from which the ovum was ovulated, will now convert into the corpus luteum. So you can appreciate the stepwise development of the ovum from primary oocyte till the mature ovum, which will then convert to zygote, and as well as the development of the ovarian follicle in parallel. The primary oocyte in primary follicle, secondary oocyte in pre-ovulatory follicle, and when it has been ovulated, the follicle will convert into the corpus luteum. Female reproductive hormones. As you know, ovarian cells, two most important, theca cells and the granulosa cells, these are responsible for the production of female reproductive hormones. Two most important hormones for the activation of ovary coming from the pituitary are the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. So if you have a keen look at this image, you can appreciate that luteinizing hormone is stimulating both the theca cells and the granulosa cells, but more action is on the theca cells, whereas follicle stimulating hormone receptors are only present on the granulosa cells, as you can see over here. Third thing you can appreciate, the precursor of these hormones, estrogen and progesterone, is LDL, from which cholesterol is taken up by the granulosa and theca cells. They undergo a series of steps to ultimately form the female reproductive hormones. Another thing, if you look, from cholesterol to pregnenolone to progesterone, these two steps can occur both in the theca cells and the granulosa cells. So both of them are capable of producing progesterone, but the theca cells have a more important role in forming this progesterone, because here the luteinizing hormone is directly stimulating the conversion of cholesterol to pregnenolone and ultimately the progesterone. So this is much more stimulated over here, and here the progesterone is also converted into androgens, which the granulosa cells cannot do. So progesterone being produced by both the theca cells and the granulosa cells and stimulated by the luteinizing hormone in the theca cells only. And this progesterone can also convert to androgens only inside the theca cells. This androgen afterwards is transferred to the granulosa cells, which have another enzyme known as aromatase. This aromatase can convert androgens to the estrogen, which is the most important female reproductive hormone along with the progesterones. But the theca cells do not have this aromatase enzyme, so they cannot convert androgens to the estrogens. So both have complementary role. If only granulosa cells are functional, they cannot themselves make the estrogen. They have this step only in the theca cells for the production of androgens. And only if theca cells are functional, they will not be capable of forming this estrogen as well. So both are functioning in compatibility. Another thing you can see, this aromatase enzyme is being stimulated by the follicle stimulating hormone attached at the level of the granulosa cells. So follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone are stimulating the production of estrogens and progesterones by an interplay of the theca cells and the granulosa cells. These two cells are present in the female reproductive ovaries. Now the functions of these hormones. First, the function of estrogen. So we will be looking into the function of estrogen at puberty. during pregnancy and some non-reproductive functions as well. So let's discuss one by one. At puberty, the effect of estrogen on the reproductive tract plus the secondary reproductive characteristics. So inside the reproductive tract, it will stimulate the follicle and ovum maturation, and its release will thin the cervical mucus, which will make it compatible for the movement of sperm and hence fertilization. Stimulates the contraction of uterus oviduct. This will facilitate the movement of ovum from the fallopian tube to the uterus. Increased synthesis of endometrial progesterone receptors, which is required for sustainment of pregnancy. So whatever the functions of estrogens are on the reproductive tract are, these are preparing the female reproductive tract for bearing the pregnancy, allowing for fertilization, movement of the ovum, making it prepared for the action of progesterone. Hormonal action also include negative feedback, a very important concept to understand the interplay of all these hormones. The estrogen and progesterone have negative feedback to the hypothalamic and pituitary hormones, including GnRH, LH, and FSH. It will be having a negative feedback to all, but at one time in the reproductive cycle, each month, just before ovulation, estrogen has this positive feedback to the luteinizing hormone that we will be looking in detail when we are discussing the menstrual cycle. So right now, the overall rule is negative feedback, with just one exception just before ovulation when there is positive feedback of estrogen to the luteinizing hormone. Also, the estrogen acts at the level of internal and external genitalia for their enlargement and maturation. Change in the vaginal epithelium from cuboid to stratified type, again preparing it for mechanical stress. Proliferation of endometrial stroma, as will occur every month when the uterine endometrium will grow in size and strength and thickness until it is desquamated. Development of the endometrial glands inside the uterine walls. Proliferation of the glandular tissue of fallopian tube and its ciliated epithelium, and this will again help in providing nutrition to the embryo if fertilization occurs, and also the growth of ciliated epithelium will help in the movement of the zygote. The secondary reproductive characters which are developed at the time of puberty are also under the influence of estrogen, including the development of the stromal and ductal tissue of the breast, plus the deposition of fats in the breast. Here you can appreciate the deposition of stromal and the ductal tissue, and when we will look into the functions of progesterone, you can compare it over here. During pregnancy, estrogen has the role for the preparation of pregnancy, like endometrial progesterone receptor synthesis, growth of the myometrium, increase in the thickness of endometrium was a function that happens every month during menstrual cycles. But growth of the myometrium, this is what is estrogen doing for the preparation of pregnancy, as the myometrial contraction would be required at the time of parturition and birth. Also, estrogen has a role during parturition and lactation. For example, it stimulates the ductal development of the breast, thus preparing it for lactation. It inhibits the prolactin receptors throughout the pregnancy, and after the pregnancy, when the birth has occurred, estrogen level decreases and its opposing effect on prolactin receptor is lost, which then allows for the lactation. It has a very important role to onset the parturition by inducing the synthesis of oxytocin receptors now. For the preparation of pregnancy, it enhanced the synthesis of progesterone receptors, and for parturition, it is now increasing the oxytocin receptors. Also, it helps by increasing the myometrial gap junctions. The more the gap junctions in the uterine smooth muscles, more forceful and coordinated smooth muscle contractions would be there for the parturition, uterine contraction, and birth of the baby. Non-reproductive functions of estrogen include overall fat deposition in the female body, increasing HDL, high density lipoproteins, and decreasing LDL. This is its cardioprotective action. And that is why the females before menopause have a lower incidence of cardiovascular diseases as compared to men because of this cardioprotective action of the estrogen. Another cardioprotective action of estrogen is promoting vasodilation via nitric oxide in the arterioles. Again, this is a cardioprotective action. Very important effect of estrogen on the bones. It inhibits the osteoclastic activity. Thus, when osteoclasts are not working, the bone density will be increasing, bone deposition will be increasing. So it has a protective action on the bones of the females. That is why after menopause, when the estrogen is reduced, the health of bones is drastically reduced. Estrogen also causes uniting of the epiphysis with the shaft of the long bones. This is what is related to growth. The bones keep on growing in length until the epiphyseal closure has occurred. Estrogen is responsible for early closure of this epiphyseal plate and its fusion with the metaphysis. That is why the female's height is relatively less as compared to the height of the males, because their epiphyseal closure is relatively earlier as compared to the males. Estrogen also causes the skin to develop a texture that is soft and smooth, a secondary character of female gender as well. Responsible is estrogen hormone. So these are a few functions of estrogen in different walks of life, and we will be looking into more functions when we will be discussing the physiology of pregnancy and the menstrual cycle. Functions of progesterone include providing a suitable environment for nourishment of embryo and the fetus. Estrogen is increasing the progesterone receptors so that progesterone can come and provide nutrition and suitable environment not only to the embryo but also to the fetus. Progesterone enhances secretory changes in the uterine endometrium during the later half of monthly cycle, whereas the estrogen was involved in increasing the endometrial thickness plus increasing the growth of the glands. Estrogen had no role in the secretory activity. That is the function of the progesterone, which will enhance the secretions of the endometrial glands as well. Progesterone has a role to decrease the frequency and intensity of uterine contraction. This helps in preventing the expulsion of implanted ovum. Thus, progesterone sustained level is required by the body to sustain the pregnancy. Otherwise, uterine contractions will expel the ovum. Sometimes the people at risk of early miscarriage are also prescribed progesterone to decrease the uterine contraction and provide the embryo a suitable environment for implantation as well as sustaining the pregnancy. Whereas estrogen has opposite role, as it increases the frequency and intensity of uterine contraction. That is why when the fertilization implantation occurs, the level of estrogen starts decreasing and level of progesterone is maintained. It promotes the secretion by the mucosal lining of the fallopian tubes. Again, the growth of fallopian tube endometrial glands was by the estrogen, and its secretory activity is promoted by the progesterone, and these secretions are responsible for providing early nutrition to the ovum before implantation of the embryo. It promotes the development of lobules and alveoli of the breast, again preparing it for lactation, whereas estrogen was doing the same but by increasing the ductal and stromal tissue of the breast. So lobules and alveoli are directly stimulated by the progesterone. It causes a thick mucus plug to form in the cervical canal so that the sperms may be retarded to travel into the uterine cavity now, because the progesterone was increased after ovulation. If the fertilization has occurred, the cervical canal mucus plug will retard the movement of sperm as well as the infectious microbes into the uterine cavity, so that polyspermy and infectious environment can be avoided, and if the fertilization has already occurred, the pregnancy can be sustained. Inhibits the milk secreting action of prolactin during gestation by having the inhibitory action at the level of prolactin receptor. This is a function that is shared by the progesterone along with the estrogen. It inhibits the secretion of GnRH, LH, luteinizing hormone, and FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, again a function shared with estrogen. Now the menstrual abnormalities and ovulatory cycles. That means failure to ovulate, but the periods are occurring at regular intervals, and this is what is seen in normal females around menopause and around the puberty. Amenorrhea means simply the absence of menstruation. This can be because of a primary or a secondary reason. Primary, we will call it when the menstruation never started in a female for some genetic or other reasons, while secondary amenorrhea is cessation of cycles in a woman with previously normal periods, for example, caused by the pregnancy. The most important, as you can see in the larger font size and the bold, the most important reason of secondary amenorrhea to rule out on the first hand. Rest can be changes in the environment, pituitary disorders like LH, FSH reduced, emotional stimuli, hypothalamic disorders will decrease the GnRH level, or it can be a primary ovarian disorder by itself leading to secondary amenorrhea. Hypomenorrhea is scanty flow during periods. Menorrhagia is abnormally profuse flow during periods. Metorrhagia is bleeding in between the cycles. Oligomenorrhea is reduced frequency, while dysmenorrhea is painful menstruation, and this is caused because of the accumulation of prostaglandin in the uterus. Female fertility. As you know, the age of female fertility is from puberty to the menopause. And now within each monthly cycle, which days are more fertile? Let's have a look. Ovum remains viable and capable of being fertilized no longer than 24 hours after ovulation. So the sperm must be there before the ovulation occurs, as the sperm is going to take time for its traveling as well. Sperms can remain fertile in the female reproductive tract for up to 5 days. So that means before ovulation, even 5 days before, if the sperm was entered, the female fertility would be there. But after ovulation, if the sperm entered, it may not be capable of reaching the ovum for fertilization, as it takes 24 to 48 hours by the sperm to reach the ovum in the fallopian tube. For fertilization to take place, sperm must be introduced to the female reproductive tract between 4 to 5 days before ovulation, up to a few hours after ovulation, after which the ovum will be incapable of fertilizing. So periods of female fertility during each month is short, about 4 to 5 days, and more, that is more before the day of ovulation. Now, the methods that can be used to determine ovulation if you want to counsel a female for her days of maximum fertility. The simplest method is, in case of regular cycle, the day of ovulation is 14 days before menstruation in a 28 days period. So you can calculate in a regular cycle female the expected day of ovulation and counsel her about the maximum fertility days. Other ways to do that include analysis of urine for a surge in pregnenolone, which is a metabolic product of progesterone, and this is going to be increased during the later half of the cycle. And if this is not raised in the second half of the cycle, that will suggest failure of ovulation. Another way of doing so is by charting the body temperature throughout the cycle. As the body temperature increases because of secretion of progesterone during the later half of the cycle by approximately 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit. So if daily charting is done, you may see abrupt increase in the body temperature at the time of ovulation. As you can see, this is what occurs before ovulation body temperature, abrupt increase at the time of ovulation, and stayed increase until the progesterone level was high in the second half of the cycle. Now, the female sterility can be caused because of multiple reasons. For example, abnormal functioning of the genital system, something abnormal in the development of ovum, maybe genetically. The most common cause of female sterility is failure to ovulate, which can be caused by, again, many reasons. Something wrong with the ovary, something wrong with the hormones, decreased GnRH level, this will be a pituitary cause. Abnormal ovaries, for example, polycystic ovarian disease, maybe ovum was normal, fertilization occurred, but the uterus was having some disease like endometriosis. Salpingitis is the inflammation of fallopian tubes that will retard the movement of ovum and the embryo, or the secretion of abnormal mucus plug by the uterine cervix that will prevent the fertilization. Normally, the first half of cycle has high level of estrogen and second level has high level of progesterone, and the estrogen makes this mucus thin. If the level of estrogen up and down, the thin mucus will be replaced by the thick mucus plug that will retard the fertilization. Now, the modes of contraception. These can be occurring at the level of implantation, at the level of ovulation, or at the level of sperm transport. So, the movement of sperm to the ovum can simply be done by the rhythm method, where you calculate the days in which the female is most fertile and avoiding those days using some chemical contraceptive that will kill the sperms in the semen, interrupting the entry of sperm into the tract using some barrier method, or permanent sterilization, for example, by ligating the, and that permanent sterilization procedure includes vasectomy, that requires the ligation of the vas deferens, which was responsible for bringing the sperms to the semen, and if that is blocked, the sperms will not be entering the semen. At the level of implantation, after the fertilization has occurred, intrauterine contraceptive devices, they can retard the implantation. These might be having mechanical, like some metals like copper, that will retard the implantation, or these can be hormone based, which will be releasing hormones locally to retard the implantation of the zygote. Those involving prevention of ovulation are hormonal contraceptives that can be taken in the form of the pills, implanted subcutaneously, or in the form of the patches. So, blockage of transport include natural contraception or rhythm method. Chemical contraceptives are available in the form of jellies, foams, creams, suppositories. Withdrawal method, barrier methods, both for males and females available. Sterilization by surgical treatment in males, vasectomy, and tubal ligation in females. By hormonal contraceptives, either it can be used in combination, estrogen or progesterone, or separately, depending upon the case. These will prevent follicle maturation and ovulation, will enhance the viscosity of cervical mucus, and decrease the muscular contractions in female reproductive tract that will retard the movement of sperm as well as the zygote. Subcutaneous implants can be implanted, which will be releasing slowly these hormones over 5 years. Birth control patches are impregnated with hormones and they are absorbed through the skin. Implantation is blocked by using intrauterine devices, which are placed inside the uterus, made up of copper, and provide long-term contraception over the years by either the mechanical irritation or by secreting some hormones. Emergency contraception, if needed, can be done by using pills, which are having either high dose of progesterone alone or with estrogen, and this must be taken within 3 days, or by insertion of a copper intrauterine contraceptive device within the 5 days. Menopause. That means cessation of menstrual cycle. Human ovaries become unresponsive to gonadotrophins with advancing age, and their function declines so that the cycle disappears, and we call it menopause. And this is a normal physiological phenomena which occurs between the age of 45 to 55, where the average age is 52 years. When the ovaries become non-responsive to gonadotrophins, that is luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, there is going to be decreased to no secretion of progesterone and estrogen in the ovaries. In this case, when there is no estrogen and progesterone, the negative feedback is going to be lost, and FSH and LH level is going to be increased, more so of FSH and also somewhat of luteinizing hormone. So if you test the hormonal profile of a female after menopause, you will find low estrogen, low progesterone, high LH, and very high FSH levels. Now, the side effects of menopause will be because of absence of estrogen and progesterone, which were sustaining the reproductive tract, that will start becoming atrophic. Estrogen was protecting bones. Now, the osteoclastic activity will increase and the person will suffer from osteoporosis. The cardioprotective effect will be lost, and ischemic heart disease will be more predisposed, as well as renal diseases. Loss of ovarian secretion of estrogen and a high surge of luteinizing hormone leads to these symptoms in a perimenopausal female, including hot flushes, extreme feeling hot suddenly, psychic sensation of dyspnea, otherwise the respiratory tract would be normal, irritability, fatigue, anxiety, decreased strength and calcification of the bones. These will be reported by a perimenopausal female. To counteract these effects, if these are hampering the quality of life of the female, sometimes estrogens analogs are also prescribed if needed. Female puberty. Let's define adolescence versus puberty. The period of final maturation of gonads and reproductive system by the gonadotrophins from the pituitary. We will call it adolescence. Whereas puberty is the period when the endocrine and gametogenic functions of the gonads have first developed to a point where reproduction is possible. So adolescence is simply the maturation of the reproductive tract under the effect of the hormones, whereas puberty involves the capacity to be reproducible by the gametogenic as well as endocrinal action. And the age among females for this is 8 years to 13 years, and among boys it is 9 years to 14 years. And how is this onset? This is by the pituitary gonadotrophins, and these pituitary gonadotrophins are in return released by the pulsatile release of the GnRH hormones from the hypothalamus. Since birth till puberty, the GnRH release is kept suppressed, and this under the cues will start increasing at the time of puberty, which leads to the formation of these gonadotrophins, and these gonadotrophins then lead to the endocrinal and gametogenic functions to onset the puberty. Now, the series of events seen in the females related to puberty in series are thelarchy, pubarchy, and menarche, as you can see, from the development of breast to the development of hair to the appearance of first menstrual period. And some books also include the fourth step, that is adrenarche, which is the secretion of adrenal androgens, also responsible for some secondary characters, secondary reproductive characters. And the age of this may vary among males and females again. If the early onset of puberty occurs, that can be a true precocious puberty or a pseudo puberty. Precocious would be taken as the early onset. Now, true early onset versus a false appearance of early onset. Now, when we will have a false appearance of early onset, if there was only early development of secondary sexual characters without gametogenesis. And this might be caused by abnormal exposure of females to the estrogen, for example, taken externally for some reason, or maybe produced internally for some unknown reason or known reason, that will not mature the gametogenesis but will just early onset the secondary sexual characters, thus giving a false appearance of early onset of puberty and called as precocious pseudopuberty. In comparison, due to an early but otherwise normal pubertal pattern of gonadotrophin secretion from the pituitary will lead to true early onset of puberty, and that was caused by early GnRH surge, early HS, luteinizing hormone, and FSH. Everything else is normal, but only having an early onset, and this is known as true precocious puberty. In comparison, there is delayed or absent puberty as well, and we will call it delayed if menarche has failed to occur by the age of 17. Cause can be pan-hypopituitarism or a hypothalamic cause, a pituitary cause, or it can be some genetic cause. For example, Turner syndrome, X0 chromosomal pattern. Of course, there can be other reasons as well. Primary amenorrhea is labeled if the puberty is delayed, even though the gonads are present and endocrinal functions are normal. If the endocrinal functions and gonadic functions, everything is delayed, it's delayed puberty only. And if otherwise other features of puberty are there, but only the menstruation cycle is not started, we will call it primary amenorrhea. In this, the other endocrinal functions and gonadic functions will be normal. That's all about the abnormalities of menstruation.